Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. A June court date has been set to hear the constitutional matter regarding the National Identification System. The opposition People's National Party (PNP) filed the motion on Monday challenging the constitutionality of sections of the National Identification and Registration Act. Opposition spokesperson on justice and one of the attorneys for the PNP, Donna Scott Motley, explains the process.
The process of filing a claim, any kind of claim in the court, is a court-driven process. So when you attend on the judge will set the timetable, and that is what we anticipate will be done at the first hearing. The documents have been served on the Attorney General of Jamaica, and we are looking forward to all the processes following in as expeditious a manner as possible. We remain confident in our position, but more importantly, we are determined that this action will be taken on behalf of the people of Jamaica who have concerns about this legislation. We are trying to protect the constitutional rights, and we are looking forward to a determination by the court.
And the parliamentary opposition has continued its attack on N.I.D.S. For opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips, it's the government that's creating the issues, as he believes the matter should have been addressed differently.
The opposition on a Tuesday announced it had sought the intervention of the court to declare that aspects of the National Identification and Registration Act infringe on the constitutional rights of Jamaicans. Speaking with TVJ News, opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips continued pointing fingers, saying the problems associated with the act could have been easily solved.
Much of the problem that the country is encountering with the national identification legislation would have been entirely avoided if the bill had been put to a joint select committee. It is quite unhelpful to suggest that parts of the legislation dated back to the previous administration.
Dr. Phillips said had his party been in power, the act would have been treated differently.
We would never have taken legislation of that significance without giving all stakeholders a chance to consider all the aspects before the Parliament.
He insists that the lawsuit being filed is not to be seen as another obstacle because the People's National Party (PNP) genuinely wants the issue to be properly assessed.
So what we really want is not to create red herrings and sideshows. What we really need is to be certain that none of the constitutional rights of the Jamaican people are being breached by this particular legislation that was rushed through the Parliament by the current JLP administration.
Jeline Pearson, TVJ News.
Air quality tests conducted by the National Environment and Planning Agency (NEPA) have confirmed that persons located close to Riverton City have been exposed to high levels of pollutants due to the fire which has been raging since Sunday. Tests were conducted in Riverton earlier this week, shortly after the fire broke out at the facility housing towers. Senior Manager for the Environmental Management Subdivision at NEPA, Richard Nelson, received the results yesterday.
The PM10 level during the burning went up as much as 114 micrograms per meter cube. What it is saying is that it is less than what the allowable limit on any given day, which is 150. But it doesn't negate the fact that people will be affected because, as you know, persons who are predisposed, such as asthmatic persons, persons with respiratory illnesses, and so forth, will be affected. And also, different persons have different level of tolerance. So there are going to be some impact.
The NEPA official outlined some of the other key findings of the air quality tests.
So we also look at the modeling to see where the fallouts would be. And it really speaks to going into the hills, right? Into the Plantation Heights area. That's where it normally would take it. But what we have also noticed is that this particular situation was affected by the weather. And so the rain that fell and so forth, there was very little breeze to take it away. And we found that it was concentrated in and around the general area of the fire. So that is places like Coraville and so forth, Riverton City, Riverton Meadows, those places.
There is more disruption in the public sector today as civilian workers employed to the Jamaica Fire Brigade have raised concerns about delays in wage negotiations. According to the National Workers Union, which represents those workers, it's awaiting a response from the Ministry of Local Government to concerns about delays. EU Vice President Arthur Grant says discussions have been ongoing since 2015 for improvements in wage and fringe benefits for drivers, mechanics and auto body repairmen. The upset workers across...
We expect that those persons who would report this morning on the 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. shift based on our members' report that will also be the case. We expect that the fire brigade will be severely under staff in this regard as it relates to responding to any kind of emergencies or fires that occur in the parishes where our members are, including Portland, St. Thomas, St. Mary, St. Anne, Clarendon, St. Catherine, also in Manchester and St. Elizabeth and Kingston and St. Andrew. Because in fact, as late as last week, we wrote to the ministry, the permanent secretary, indicating that the workers are restive, that the workers are distressed, and we have not even received a response to our communication.
Wage talks between the Police Federation and the Finance Ministry have again stalled. The parties met Tuesday at the Ministry of Finance, but negotiations ended without any adjustments to wage and fringe benefits. In a communique to its members, the Federation said officials were unable to give an acceptable explanation for the proposed 4-year contract. The Federation added that the increases being sought were again ignored by technocrats. It also noted that a promise made by former Finance Minister Audley Shaw for compensation on public holidays was excluded from the package. The Jamaica Public Service Company JPS is refuting claims by the family of Dean Wood that discussion has not taken place. The JPS, in a press release last evening, said the family has an apparent misunderstanding as it relates to matters regarding 34-year-old Dean Wood, who received severe burns to his body following an explosion at the Rockford Power Plant on April 14. JPS says since the incident, it has been in dialogue with Mr. Wood's family as well as Mr. Wood's employer at William and Smith Construction Company Limited, a contractor of JPS. The JPS says it will continue discussions with all relevant persons. Mr. Wood's family staged a second protest outside the Rockford plant yesterday, claiming that after 2 meetings with the power company, there was no clear indication of the level of assistance that would be provided to Mr. Wood. Since the incident, Mr. Wood has been in the intensive care unit at the Kingston Public Hospital. A joint select committee of Parliament will soon be convened to review the anti-gang legislation. National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang gave the details in Parliament yesterday as the government moves to clamp down on gang violence in Westmoreland and other sections of the island.
Sure that the select committee is activated. I say not longer than 2 weeks from now, in that some internal work was being done by the legal departments, but we can get this done quickly. We'll consult and have this joint select committee set up because it's a matter that needs to be dealt with urgently and quickly as part of the total fight against criminal activity.
Dr. Chang was responding to concerns from opposition Member of Parliament Mark Golding, who urged the government to quickly review the bill. 7 people, including a 2-year-old, were killed in Grange Hill, Westmoreland last week as a result of a gang war. 3 people who helped to rescue the wards of the state from a fire at the Walker's Place of Safety have been recommended for national awards. Selena Reed, a ward of the state, their caregiver Grace Allen, and Kimani Anderson, who lives nearby, all played a major role in ensuring that 34 wards of the state did not perish in the fire.
Who lives next door to the home. And as the fire raged, Mr. Speaker, and one of the passageways became blocked. It trapped some of the girls into one of the rooms. And Kimani, Mr. Speaker, risked his own life, entered the building, kicked off one of the doors to enable 6 girls to come out of that room into safety. Mr. Speaker, we are recommending that, and we have already recommended that Selena, Grace Allen, and Kimani Anderson all be given national honors for their bravery.
Gave the update in Parliament earlier this week. In January, an electrical short circuit led to a fire which destroyed the Walker's Place of Safety on Lyndhurst Crescent in St. Andrew. 2 wards of the state died. Mr. Green said so far $21 million has been raised towards reconstruction efforts. In the meantime, Mr. Green says the Youth Ministry will be increasing its child protection campaign. The campaign will also discourage corporal punishment and bullying.
Our anti-bullying campaign will highlight the prevalence of bullying and give real-life scenarios and indicate how our children that are being bullied can get help. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, we are strengthening our safety in schools framework, and we will be introducing a team of social workers to work with our schools.
Still in Parliament, opposition spokesperson on Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Lisa Hanna is calling for Jamaicans to benefit more from foreign direct investments. She too was making her contribution to the sectoral debate in the House of Representatives.
We must also ensure that these investments help to build rather than simply exploit the people of our country. We must do more to put Jamaicans at the center of our investment activities. Companies must hire Jamaicans. These companies must be tax compliant and not use their offshore services to reduce local taxes payable. They must also train Jamaicans, Mr. Speaker, for management.
2 persons will face a runoff to represent the People's National Party PNP for the Northeast St. Elizabeth constituency. This after Member of Parliament Evan Redmond indicated that he will not be recontesting the seat. The candidates are Basil Waite and former Black River Mayor Everton Fisher. The runoff is scheduled for May 20 and campaign is already in high gear throughout the constituency.
I wish you well and operate a clean campaign, bearing in mind that you are both comrades.
In news overseas, U.S. President Donald Trump will meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on June 12 in Singapore. The U.S. president made the announcement on Twitter on Thursday. Details from the CNN.
We are told by sources that administration officials have been instructed to move forward with plans to hold that historic summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un in Singapore. Now, that comes after the president today, during that cabinet meeting, ruled out the demilitarized zone on the Korean border. Of course, the only other location that he has floated publicly has been Singapore, and we are told now that administration officials are moving ahead with plans to hold the summit there. Of course, Singapore has been the preferred location by administration officials and U.S. officials overall ever since the president announced he was going to meet with him there over the DMZ, because it is seen as a more neutral place for that meeting. But Wolf, a word of caution, of course, this is a president who changes his mind very often. There is certainly a chance he could decide to do so before that meeting actually takes place. Something the president said today, he's going to announce the date and location within the next 3 days. And of course, the North Koreans could also change their mind.
And in sports, Olympic bronze medalist John Mayer on Wednesday confirmed he has resigned as head coach of Vere Technical's track and field team. Mayer, who held the position for 6 years at the Clarendon-based school, indicated he left for personal reasons.
I think it was about time for me to move on. My tenure at Vere Technical, I think it was time well spent, and I was able to make some positive impact on student athletes. Throughout my short time there, I was able to achieve over 25 scholarships for student athletes to go and better themselves.
Mayor also revealed that two of his former students at Ver Technical, World Under-18 400-meter hurdle silver medalist Sanique Walker and sprint hurdler Amoy Brown, are destined for the University of Texas later this year. Ver Technical last won the girls' championship title in 2002. However, their historic run of 13 straight victories and a record of 22 girls' championship titles remain unbeaten. The Clarendon-based team could only manage 5th place at this year's ISA Boys and Girls Athletics Championships with 105.5 points. And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.